Yeah, hi, it's Tilde from the Orry Mill, and this is my husband Stephen. I'm the one who knits, he doesn't, and he works in the background of the shop doing all the technical stuff, so setting up this YouTube podcast, for example.
Accounts,
yeah, and what else?
website.
Yeah, so yeah, he keeps me right.
But I don't work full time in the
Yeah.
shop. I'm full time project manager, and Tilda runs the shop full time. But you reckon you can teach anyone to knit?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Haven't had someone I haven't been able to teach so
So
far.
I don't knit at all,
Mhm.
which is interesting. But I'd like to knit. So you're going to teach me how to knit something.
Yeah.
So what do you teach an absolute beginner?
So what I teach an absolute beginner is normally this hat here. This is a beanie.
Why is this good to knit?
Well, actually it's good to knit because it's just garter stitch.
What's garter stitch?
Garter stitch is when you just knit every row. So it's
As opposed to what? Knit and purl?
knit and purl, yeah. So you got two different stitches, and you got your knit stitch, which is slightly easier than your purl stitch.
Why is a knit stitch easier than a purl stitch?
Well, I'm going to teach you how to do it the Continental way, and the way you do the knit stitch is just a very simple movement.
You're using quite a lot of terms here. The Continental way,
Yes.
like the breakfast. Continental breakfast.
Yeah, pretty much. No, but in Europe, in kind of Scandinavia, we knit in a slightly different way that the UK knitters do.
Why would you do the Continental way? Is it because you're Scandinavian?
Well, it's actually because it's a little bit quicker generally, and also, yeah, just because I think a lot of people. It's another thing is actually very similar to the way you crochet. So if you learn to knit the Continental way, you can also crochet more
Okay.
or less instantly.
So we're going to knit this hat.
Yeah.
It's one stitch, a garter stitch.
Yeah.
And it's one ball of wool.
One ball of wool. Yeah. So basically,
What kind of wool is this?
This is a Rowan big wool. This is one of the best wools for beginners. You come in obviously lots of different colours. So I think we've chosen that one, the middle one.
This middle one,
Yeah.
which is, what colour is it? What do you call it?
Can't actually remember the name. It's got a number. You can see in the ball band.
And what's it made of?
So this is 100% merino wool.
Merino wool.
Yeah, and the reason we are doing it in merino wool is actually because it has a really good elasticity. So what that means that when you have knit it,
So there's no elastic. What makes things elastic?
it's just the kind of the abilities of kind of natural fibres to be kind of quite
To
it just
contract
feels-
back to their original shape.
yeah.
And what
So-
else do we need to knit this hat?
So we obviously need some needles. So I got like 3 different options here. So you got your sing needles.
So these are quite thick needles.
Yeah, so we need thick needles with this.
Why?
Because it's a thick wool. So you are basically, you're basically using thicker needles for thicker wool and thinner needles for
Okay.
thinner wool.
Why
So
are these aluminium
It's just
and these are wooden?
so it's just really it's a personal preference. What we need. We're actually going to use interchangeable needles. So
Okay, wait a minute. This is a whole new thing.
yeah.
So these are needles that
These
you would
are-
see a knitting granny use.
Yeah.
And then you've got these fancy little needles.
Mm-hmm.
So these are kind of small. These are much smaller. What's happening here?
Yeah, well, we're actually going to put a wire on it. So we've got a pack here with the wires in it. So
But these are the same diameter.
yeah, they're
So
the
they're
same.
10 millimeters.
Yeah,
Okay.
and we just need to screw them on. So they come with a wee key. Also come with some wee ends. We're not going to use them right now. We're just going to screw these needles on. They become circular needles.
We should probably show this on our fancy overhead camera you've got.
Yeah, we can do a wee.
Right, hold
So-
while you're doing that, we've forgotten something. Do we not have a pattern?
Yeah, I do have a pattern. I've actually made a collection. I decided to make up this collection because I couldn't find any complete beginner hats that I loved, or beginner patterns that I loved. So I thought, try and make some contemporary looking items. Also, I don't like to teach people just to knit square. I like to knit to teach people something they can actually use.
So I don't understand. So if you're trying to learn to knit, normally you would end up just knitting a square.
Yeah.
But you've thought it was better to try and knit something that you can then end up using or something like that. And you've called it, this is your own design.
Yeah.
And it's called the Baltic collection.
Yeah.
Which is kind of amusing. It doesn't refer to Baltic states like Lithuania and Estonia. Well, it does refer to that, but it refers to the fact that in Glasgow and the west coast of Scotland, people in the west coast of Scotland tend to say it's pure Baltic when they mean it's cold.
Yeah, that's why it's called the Baltic.
And you've lived in Glasgow for
since 2001.
Okay.
So that's what?
I don't know.
23 years.
Is it?
Yeah.
No,
Kind
it's
of.
2022. So it's 21 years.
Oh, sorry, 21 years. My math has kind of gone out. Don't know.
Right.
Blame COVID.
21 years, and you're from Denmark, and when you came here, you've got all these funny phrases you've learned from Glasgow. Like, it's pure Baltic, by the way. So Glaswegians tend to add pure before a lot of things. I don't know why. We also say things are dead. Like, that's dead good. It's dead funny. Pure dead funny. Pure dead brilliant. So I don't really know why we do that. I mean, it's brilliant, meaning it's really good. But then we say dead brilliant or pure dead brilliant. So when something's really good, it's pure dead. And if it's really cold, which often it is in Scotland, although it's nice, quite nice right now, it's pure Baltic. So when it's pure Baltic, you're going to wear this hat and you're going to... Okay.
Maybe I need to change the name to It's Pure Baltic.
Well, I kind of think that was the point. I don't know why did you call it as Baltic? It should be It's Pure Baltic.
Well, just change it. Okay, it's now called the Pure Baltic collection.
Right, let's change it. So, how long does it... Because, I mean, knitting takes a wee while.
Yeah. It does.
I mean, I like knitwear, right?
Mm.
But obviously, I just want to wear it.
Yeah, it takes quite a while.
Why do you like knitting?
Well, it's just calming.
It's calming.
It's
relaxing.
Yeah, and it's trying to get me off my phone because I sit on my phone all day.
It's mindful.
Yeah. It's...
Okay.
Yeah.
So, we're going to knit this. So, how long would it take you to knit this?
Well, I can knit that in an hour and a half.
You can knit it in an hour and a half. How long would it take a beginner normally to knit it?
Probably about 5 hours.
Okay, so maybe a week or so,
about,
5 days. Yeah. So we're going to try and do this in 5 days. I'm going to try and do this in 5 days, and you're going to show me how to do it.
Yeah.
With one ball of wool. So this one's in a teal, and we're going to do this kind of, I don't know what you call that. Oh, yellowy browny colour. I mean, it's kind of nice. I don't know how it looks like there, but it is quite nice.
Yeah.
So these needles, what's going on with these needles?
So
wait a minute, why have they got a wire between them? What on earth is that all about?
Well, it's really so you can knit in the round.
Knitting in the round.
Yeah, so you
Just for everyone claps when you're knitting, and the people, you sit in the centre, and everyone's around you, and you're going, go, 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 go.
No, it's so you can knit like a jumper without having seams.
Or a hat.
Or a hat.
Which is round.
Yeah, but you're not actually knitting that in the round. You're just using circular needles.
I'm already, okay, this is kind
You're
of complex.
going to knit what's called flat.
Knit flat.
But it's quite good to learn to knit on these ones, because if you're learning to knit on the circular needles, you will not have any problems if you're getting to a pattern that needs to be knitted in the round, like a cowl, for example, or a hat.
Are you saying that you could knit, you don't ever have to use these two sticks? No. You could always use these
ones,
with the wire in between it. So why do some people like these?
Well, especially in Scotland, actually, there is a way of knitting with these ones where you tuck one under the arm. Right. So they would sit, or maybe it's the other one, I can't remember, but they would sit kind of going on. Some people do both, so they would sit kind of, and also, it's just a preference. Some people prefer the long ones. Nothing is wrong here. It's just if you learn to knit on the circular ones, there's a lot of really nice patterns coming initially from the Scandinavian countries and Germany and all kind of where you do the picking, and they've started knitting in the round, so they actually knit the jumper from the top down now, which means it just no sewing up, because most of my
You can knit the neck of the jumper and the arms.
Yeah, so you start with the neck and you knit down to kind of where you would kind of part for the arms. Then you put the stitches for the arms on a holder, and then you'll knit the body down straight.
That's clever.
And then after that you'll then
maybe
knit the arms.
Maybe we'll do that then at some point. Right, hold on. Let's look at these. Let's do the advertising thing, because we are a shop, obviously, and you can buy all these things in our shop. So who makes these nice colourful needles?
So this is a KnitPro. I personally love to knit with wood. Again, it's a personal preference whether you like wood or metal.
These are what, KnitPro?
Yeah, these are KnitPro. They are actually all KnitPro. We do have some pony needles as well. So this is actually from a new range. These cables, they're called the Mindful Collection.
Are these expensive? But this looks expensive. Is this expensive?
So
needles, knitting needles that I remember are always kind of grey plastic.
Yeah,
What's happened to them?
Well, they're still around, but I just don't sell in the shop. I think the ones,
because they don't feel nice, or because what?
People. Well, first of all, people love these colourful needles.
But what is it? Aluminium special that they're aluminium?
So these ones are aluminium. The grey needles, the first kind of, I think it's up to about a 6, is actually also aluminium.
Does it matter that they're strong? No.
They're well, it's okay. So one of the things with the metal needles is that they tend not to snap, whereas if you have wooden needles, probably not the 10mm, but this kind of the 3mm needles, which is much finer. If you sit on them or.
Okay, so we've got wooden needles.
Yeah.
We've got aluminium needles.
Yeah.
Then we've got in the round linked by a wire, which are shorter.
Yes.
And I'm assuming that the knitting can then go on this.
Yeah.
Kind of goes on this as you're knitting.
You'll have some.
Do I need it? If I was knitting a bigger jumper, do I need a longer cable?
Yeah.
So you can unscrew this.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. That's good, isn't it?
You can also get them fixed, so they come where basically the wire is attached to the needle. Some people prefer that. I do like the circular needles because I can then use the wire as a stitch holder as well. So
what's a stitch holder?
The stitch holder is sometimes when you knit, then you're being asked to leave some of the stitches live on a holder, and it's often kind of necklines and stuff like that. Or in the case of knitting a jumper in the round from the top down, you'll be asked to leave your kind of arm, the arm stitches on a holder. So you can actually just leave a circular needle cable on. That's why you got these ends.
What are the ends for?
The ends is for if you're using them as a stitch holder. When you then screwed your tips off, you just screw your wee ends on, and then the stitches don't fall off.
Okay, so what else? We've got needles. We've got one ball of yarn.
Yeah.
We have the pattern.
Yeah.
Which tells us how the instructions basically.
Yeah.
I don't want a pom-pom.
No, you don't have to put a pom-pom.
So you can show me to do a pom-pom, but I don't really want to do a pom-pom.
Yeah.
Right.
So
what else do we need?
Yeah, if you were to do, so you need a darning needle for sewing up.
A darning needle.
Or people call it a darning. It's a wool needle, or this is one of the best ones. It's a clover one, and there's two.
That won't focus. We need to fix that.
Yeah, and there's 2 needles in a pack. And
this is a darning needle. Why has it got a wee bent bit?
Yeah, well, some of these needles, it's just easier to pick out your stitches with it. And what's quite important with it as well is people ask, it's blunt. You don't really want to sew up your knitting with a pointy needle,
right? Because
you don't want to get your needle inside the wool.
I can't see any of this, to be honest with you. Right.
Okay.
And you have a pair of scissors.
Yeah.
These are nice scissors. Where are these from?
They're from. I think it's Hemline that does them.
But we have them on the website.
Yeah, we have them on the website. Yeah.
Yeah, little bird scissors.
You have one which is a wee yarn ball as well.
What? You have little what?
I have one with a little yarn ball as well.
Let's see the yarn ball scissors. Oh. No, these are nowhere near as good as these ones. These are much better. Anyway, right. Okay, so I'm guessing that to do this pattern, we need. There's some basic techniques I'll have to learn first of all.
Yeah, you need to cast on.
So the It's Baltic collection.
It's Pure Baltic.
Now it's called It's Pure Baltic. Yarn usage is Rowan big wool, but I can use any big wool if I wanted.
Yeah, you would use a super chunky.
A super chunk, is that what you actually call the weight of the wool?
Yeah, so look at the ball band. The ball band will always tell you that what recommended needles are. So use a super chunky yarn that recommends 10mm. This one recommends 10 to 15mm.
The hat is 1 times 100 grams, right? Which is what that is.
Yeah.
Is that a 100-gram ball?
Yeah, that's
super chunky. Yeah. Sizing is, you've got child and you've got adult. What do you mean by that?
Well, it's just really for kind of a.
So you've said it's a child or average or women's head.
Yeah.
But this is one ball.
Yeah, that's one ball.
And it fitted my head, and I've got a massive head.
Yeah.
So it's not. It will fit me.
It will fit you. You're not using it as a brim. It's if you want a brim, you have to cast on more stitches.
It's kind of, it's nice. It feels nice. It's nice. I'm bald, so it needs to feel nice, and the merino does feel nice.
Yeah.
I do look like Benny from.
But you're
what was
not.
What was the soap called? There was a soap called. What was it called? And Benny was the handyman of the hotel, and he wore this funny hat, and he looked a bit silly. But it does feel lovely. So that is I imagine that would keep you very warm.
Yeah.
So it's easy to adjust the sizing of any of the items by adding or subtracting stitches and or rows.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing you kind of need to know you have to get comfortable with adding rows and stitches.
Yeah. So when you knit this hat, one of the things is that you're told to kind of knit 64 rows, but actually what you'll also be doing, ideally you want to kind of try it on as you've knitted it, because it needs to feel really snug. If it feels like it fits, you knitted too many rows.
I think we need to take a minor pause and fix the overhead camera so you can see what we're seeing. And then, because if I'm going to knit, you want to see how I'm doing it. Yeah?
Yeah.
It's super cool. We now got us in the picture and we can see the pattern.
Yeah.
So, and we can see what we're talking about, where we've got the Baltic. So what's interesting about this pattern is this seems to be a very simple pattern, but you can do a hat, a headband, a cowl, a children's scarf, and an adult scarf.
Yeah, so for example, the headband was actually made because sometimes if you want to teach kids to knit, they don't really want as many stitches as for the hat. So it just gave the option for a really
simple garter stitch designs for complete beginners.
Yeah.
It's Pure Baltic.
Yes, so that's been changed.
Right, so what's the first thing I have to do? Where's the first instruction? So
you find the hat. Basically, this is the hat.
It's just that. That's the instructions.
Yeah, for the hat.
What's this bit?
That is for you're going into doing the headband. Here, the cowl, the scarf.
And then personalise it.
Yeah.
So all we need for the hat are these 3 lines.
Yeah.
I don't really believe you. Okay. Using 10mm needles, these.
Yeah.
Loosely cast on 19 brackets 21 STS. What does STS mean?
Stitches.
What's 1921 mean?
Yeah, so look here. Up here we've got abbreviations. So K means knit and ST and ST is stitch or stitches, right? Okay. And when it's sizing, you can see here this child is the first size. So adult is the one in the bracket and highlighted.
Right, so 19 stitches for a child's head.
Yeah.
But brackets adult.
Yeah.
Up 21 stitches for an adult. But
Yeah.
you were saying you should wrap it around your own head to check.
That is not for the stitches. The stitches is how tall you get it. So if 21 stitches will get you
cast
the...
on 19 stitches.
Yeah. So we are not knitting it in the round. We're not knitting it from here up the way. We're actually knitting it from kind of round the way like this. So you're knitting it, this is how you're knitting it, you're knitting a rectangle and then sewing up the side seam at the back.
Is that how all beanies are done?
No. Most beanies are done in the round, but to teach people to knit, it's easier to knit flat.
So you might get a slightly better beanie hat if you knit in the round.
Yeah, I have to say I have actually had pretty experienced knitters who wanted to knit this one.
Okay, so it's a matter of taste then, ultimately.
Yeah.
So this is not in the round, this is knitted flat.
Yeah.
And then it's stitched up. I can't see the stitches.
No.
So it's almost invisible, the stitches.
Yeah, so the reason I wanted to knit it sideways and not up the way was also that if you knit it sideways, then you get those wee ribbed, so it's kind of a cheat.
Right,
rib.
Okay, interesting. Right, let's get to the knitting, because this is the exciting part.
Yeah, so let's just take this ball here.
We're going to, what do we do? So there's different things. We're going to cast on. Hold on, let's go to the instructions. It says, with one tail end of yarn, sew up the cast on.
Yeah, so that's
this is for the end.
Yeah, that's the end.
Right, so wait a minute. So these instructions kind of depend on you kind of knowing how to knit.
Well,
apart from this video.
Yeah, I'm using it in the classes, so I'm teaching people how to cast on.
Alright, so this is a kind of a handy reminder.
Yeah, so we'll do the video on how to actually knit that hat as well. We'll do a wee short one, what will we?
Yeah, maybe. Okay, so what do I have to do first?
So you need to cast on. I do actually have a video on how to cast on.
Let's link to the video of casting on.
Yeah, do that. So often you need to know, it's a long tail cast on we're using, so we have to...
Well, I think I should do this.
Yeah, so you have to place a slip knot at kind of, what is it called, like a distance away from the tail here.
So I need a bit, this is the tail.
Yeah, this bit there is the tail, the kind of...
The end of the...
Yeah.
Right, and I need a bit of a long tail.
Yeah.
Is this a long tail cast on?
This is a long tail cast on.
Why are we doing a long tail cast on?
Because it gives you a stretchier cast on. That's why. And it's just it also gives you a nice even one. You obviously need to practice it a bit. But
right, okay, so how do I do it?
So first of all we need to know how long is the tail going to be.
Why?
Because you're going to cast on 21 stitches. But also you mentioned just while the camera was off, you wanted to knit it slightly shorter. You wanted
I might want to knit it shorter. I think this one's too much head, so I could technically do that. What I would think it should be is like that.
Okay, but just keep it on for me for a second, because now I'm just going to tell you how many stitches to cast on, because then we're not going from the pattern. We're changing slightly.
No, we are going from the pattern, but we're just changing it. So, right, tell me what you're saying.
Okay, so if you pull it down your head, right, and then show me where you want to, kind of roughly. So let's just quickly put a needle in here. There's what I want it in. Take it off. Right. So now I'm just going to count. I'm going to count the stitches here. How many roughly? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stitches we're going to take off. So instead of 21 less 6, it's 15.
Amazing. Right, so let's cast on.
So that gives you a shorter hat. So
how do we know how long the tail should be?
yeah, so the way you do that is actually to take your yarn. So you want a little bit of a tail so you can you want to be able to sew up the hat with the tail. So leave quite a long tail there, and then you just wind the yarn 15 times round here. So if you count
kind of
them
at the bottom of the frame, so let's bring up a wee bit. So
So yeah, so try and
on the long tail side, the side that's away from. Oh no, this is
yeah, so
that's the
just
ball
keep
side.
yeah, that's the ball side.
How many have we got there?
So let's count.
Is that one?
Yeah, that's one.
1, 2. Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now I'm pulling this quite tight.
Yeah, that's fine. Well, now
This
you
is
just
not coming out. This.
yeah, I'll unwind it for
How
you.
annoying. I don't think 15's going to fit in this, is it?
Well, you just squeeze it up.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. But there's going to be a difference in length if I pull this really tight.
There is, but it's not going to make much of a difference when we just need to get kind of a rough space for where. So take them off again. This is where you're going to make your slip knot. So do you remember how to do that?
No.
So you loop your yarn round, and then you use your thumb and index finger, and you basically put it in, and you grab the yarn. So grab the yarn and then pull it.
Okay.
Right. So you put that on your needle.
Does it matter which one?
No. Doesn't matter.
Then what?
Then tighten it up a bit, and then make sure that you know which one is the tail.
No, I don't. Look at this. It's a mess.
Yeah. So
Which
you
one's the
grab
tail? So that's the tail.
This one here is your tail. Yeah. So take that to the front. Right. So
There's possibly a lot of hands going on here.
Yeah.
This is a crazy hand.
So-
crazy hand video.
your left hand, you grab your yarn. Right.
Let me do it. I'll do it.
Yeah, but I'm going to show you. So grab your hand, and then when you with your thumb and your index finger, you put it into the middle.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. And then what you do is you take your needle, you place it at the bottom of your thumb. So if you just show so people can see it, you place it at kind of the bottom of the thumb, then you slide it up the way so you get under the yarn, and then you go over here to this side, and then you just pick with the tip of your needle and then pull that stitch back out. There you go. So that's your first stitch cast on.
No, you need to
Yeah.
do that again.
So at the bottom, from bottom towards the tip, you kind of slide your needle up under the yarn, and then you pick that one out with the tip. There you go. Well, you get out of focus when you go too high up. So yeah, try that again. You need 15 stitches on.
I need to do this 15 times.
Yeah, well, you got 3 on,
But what I'm
so
doing?
another 12. Yeah, there you go.
What's continental about this?
It's just a way. It's also called the picking method. This is just a cast-on method that.
So hold on. We're at the moment we're just casting on.
Yeah. So we are casting on.
We're casting on the yarn onto the needle.
Yeah. So we're casting on stitches.
Stitches onto the needle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yeah.
At nearly halfway.
Yeah. I forgot to tell you that if, for example, if you were going to cast on, like let's say 100 stitches, you don't want to wind your yarn round.
Have I twisted that?
Yeah, take it off again and then just.
What did I do?
It just looks a bit messy, so tighten up the previous stitch. So you do that just by pulling it. Yeah, that looks better.
What were you going to say?
So if you were to, let's say, cast on 100 stitches, you don't actually want to wind the yarn round 100 times. You can just start by winding 20 times and then use that length, and then just go up and down to. So you use the measurement of the length for 20 stitches and just add it kind of 5 times, and then you've got your 100 stitches. Because what happens often when you do the long tail is that you cast on, and then you find that maybe if you wanted 100 stitches, you cast on 90 stitches, you run out of tail and you have to redo it again, which is annoying.
So 15 stitches is what's is not what's going not it's not round my head.
No, that's not this
but
way.
it's
This
the height of the hat, as
Yeah,
it were.
exactly.
There's 15 stitches.
Yeah. They're just kind of squeezed a little bit.
They're a bit squeezed. Can we pull them onto this? No.
Yeah, you can, but you really want them to, when you're knitting them, you want them to be up on close to the tip of the needle.
Right, so now what would be the next step after cast? So we finished the cast on.
Yeah.
There's a long tail.
Yeah, so we got plenty to sew up with. So, let me see. So you can kind of spread them out a little bit. So
Right.
you then swing them around, so you're holding the needle with the stitches on in your in your left hand, and then you take the kind of the empty needle in your right hand. So that's your setup. Then because I'm teaching you the Continental way, I'm asking
The Continental.
Continental way. Sorry. You're basically holding your yarn in your left hand, and I tend to kind of sandwich the working yarn round and hold it on with my pinky, and it's basically just lying there ready to be. You put your needle in through the front loop of the stitch, and then you, with the tip of your right needle, you just pick out that stitch through, back out.
You're picking out the stitch through the other stitch.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I'm just sliding that old stitch off, and I've got a new stitch on. Let me just put it back on and you can do it. But yeah, again, I have a video which shows you this.
So for each of these techniques, we've got videos to show
Yeah.
each one in detail without us talking a lot rubbish over it.
Yeah.
So that's quite useful. Right, so hold on, what are you saying? Can I put the finger through?
Yeah, you have, so you
Grab
Yeah.
that,
grab
put it through,
yeah, and
and
then
this
you,
bit,
yeah, that's the one. You
which is the end of the ball, which is the
make
ball one.
Make sure it's the ball one. It's quite common for people to use.
Pick it and then
yeah, and
bring
then
it through.
bring it through, yeah, and then you can slide off the old stitch. So I tend to use my index finger
To push the needle through.
Yeah, to basically push the needle. Yeah.
There what happens. So that seems
So
all a bit
that's-
loose and a bit all over the shop.
Yeah. Well, when you're when you're learning to knit, your tension is going to be a bit all over the
So
place.
tension, that's quite interesting. So this is how tight it all is, right?
Yeah. So when that's actually why we've chosen this yarn, because if your tension is not the most even, you can actually just pull in the.
So you're looking to go for
fabric.
even tension.
Yeah, that comes with experience.
That comes with experience.
Yeah. Because first of all,
Okay.
so that's the first three. Yeah.
I feel a wee bit that I'm pulling it, I'm stretching it a wee bit.
Well, don't worry about that. Initially, you're really just wanting to get the grip of how to make the stitch, and it will get much easier. But try and use that index finger to.
So I'm wanting to push the
in.
needle back, or rather bring the stitches up.
Yeah, well, you still want the stitches close to the tip of the needle.
Is this going out of focus? Is that the problem?
Yeah, if you need to hold it. Yeah. You're doing really well. It is really just one movement.
So if I wanted to stop right now and I've had enough knitting for the day, I can't really stop until I've finished, got all that off that side onto that side.
I would recommend you do that, because often if you leave it like in the middle of a row, then you pick up your knitting. I've seen it a lot with beginners, that they pick up their knitting and then they start going back the way. So you basically swinging your knitting round, and so you don't get the end of the row knitted, and then it's like, why is this? Oh yeah, by the way, the knitting stitch I have shown in the video right now is the UK throwing way, so I better put a Continental knitting. Can you move your hand up just a little bit?
This is the last one.
Yeah.
And now, see, that's a bit funny. There's a bit of a So that's good, but this is a bit loose. What's happening here?
Yeah, you're often getting the edge stitch can be a little bit loose, so don't worry too much about it.
Okay, so we've done cast on, and is that 1 row or 2 rows?
So that's 1 row.
This is 1 row,
Yeah.
a cast on 1 row, and then we're going to do it again on this side.
So you always have to switch it around, so when you start a new row that you got the needle with the stitches in your left hand.
Right, I don't need this. This is now hanging. This tail is just hanging away.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm going to do now.
So you put the working yarn over your index finger, sorry, yeah, and then use your finger here to kind of hold tight. So that's kind of keeping your tension.
Okay.
And then you put your needle in from the front.
In there,
yeah, and then you just pick out. Try and see if you can be quite tight at the beginning, because that's where you.
No, it's super loose.
Yeah, so you try and make sure that stitch is quite tight. So keep it on, yeah. And there, and pick out the yarn. It's really just the first stitch you need to try and make.
It's come off.
Yeah, so if that happens, and happens often.
Oh, hold on, it's hard to see. So
okay, so can you put that tip back into that stitch there?
So this chunky, what do you call it? Super chunky.
Super chunky.
Tends to come apart quite easily.
Yeah, there you go.
So now I've kind of got back.
Yeah, and now you can start again. It often happens and people don't really know what they've done. That's the whole problem with trying to teach people how to knit, is that it's easy enough to show how it's done correctly. It's more trying to show people
how to recover.
Yeah, often because beginners don't really know what mistake they made.
Yeah, this doesn't feel as nice. This feels like I'm all over the place.
No, you're doing fine.
So the tension will, so when I get it out, I can kind of pull it a wee bit all into place.
Yeah. So this is called also, you can see you're kind of picking out your yarn through the stitch.
Yeah.
That's why this method is called the picking method. The UK method is also known as the throwing method, because you're basically throwing the yarn round the needle.
But I'm picking this out.
You're picking it, so you're kind of a picker. It's quite funny because I was watching Anna and Carlos.
Who are Arna and Carlos?
Anna and Carlos are 2 Norwegian knitters.
They're famous.
They're knitwear.
Famous knitters.
Famous knitwear
of
designers.
the world. Like Tom Daly, he's a famous knitter.
Yeah, and crochet.
And crocheter.
But yeah, Anna and Carlos, they were talking about, because one of them is a thrower and the other one is a picker. And the Anna who does the picking, he's 4 times as fast as Carlos.
Oh, okay, right. So this feels a wee bit messy.
Yeah,
and a bit scrunched up.
Yeah, first of all, you are going to be a little bit messy, but the yarn will help it look better. So if you knit a couple of rows, then give it a real good tug. So if you started even just going like, it's starting to even out. So again, just switch around. And
so that's quite interesting. We've only really been about 25-30 minutes, I don't know, maybe longer, and we're going to stop, I think, and we're going to come back to this next week. But in the interim, or maybe we're going to see how much I've knitted since then. So I've got to keep doing this.
Yeah.
Keep knitting these rows.
Yeah, rows.
How many rows am I knitting?
So you're supposed to knit roughly about 64 rows, but it really depends.
How do you know where to knit 64?
Because that was what I did for the hat.
Oh, it says in your instructions.
Yep. So easily knit 64 rows.
And we think that might be the length of the head, the circumference of the head.
Yeah.
But we're going to check.
Mm.
But that means that suggests that we're going to have to take it off the check.
No, because you will just hold that out and then you'll just hold it around
I
with the needle.
I see. It's going to come out like that. It's going to come out like this.
Yeah. So you're going to knit that way. Yeah.
Okay. So next video, we'll see what we've done. We'll maybe do a few interim videos for progress.
Yeah. I think when we get back next week as well, I'll show some of the projects I'm working on and some of the ones I've finished.
That would be exciting. And
you can see how far you got with your hat. I think we need to show how you sew it up in the next video. So maybe if you just knit the rectangle.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.